Good morning, good morning, good morning. You know, we have a saying here in the Ninth Ward, every time we have a ribbon cutting, groundbreaking, or whatever it is, when we're bringing people together for the betterment of the community, and I'm sure you all have heard it by now, that it is a great day in the Ninth Ward. First, let me just real quick explain to you all why we're here today. We're here today to celebrate our national monument here in the city of Chicago. Come on. Just a few years ago, we had a great president in Washington, D.C., amen, that saw a vision of what we were trying to do here in the community. He knew, because of his roots here in the Ninth Ward on the far south side, that we had a gem here in Pullman. And so he saw fit to designate this area as a national monument just a few years ago. This is the second national monument in the state of Illinois, but the first in the city of Chicago. Come on. And so just to build up to where we are today, in just the last 10 to 15 years, we here in the Ninth Ward have built 5 senior facilities because we know we have one of the oldest communities in the nation. And so the first thing we did was hit the ground to start building senior housing for my seniors who were struggling. When you look far south on 138th, from 130th to 138th Street, you have the Allgale Gardens community. $435 million of investment to redo all of the public housing units in Allgale. When you look at the fight that the community stood with me to get Walmart just east of this facility, the first grocery store to address the food desert on the far south side of Chicago, to bring over 400 jobs into the community. And when you look at what Walmart did for us, Walmart paved the way for us to have a City Sports, a Ross, a Planet Fitness, and then it paved the way for Method, an environmentally green soap cleaning product here in our community. And then on top of Method, we built the largest indoor greenhouse in Gotham Greens, creating more jobs in the community. And then just last year, we opened up another Gotham Greens because they bust out at the seams and they needed more product and they needed more area in the community. And so they doubled down and built another Gotham Greens. So now we have the first and the second largest greenhouse in the United States of America. That has also paved the way for Whole Foods. We all know we stole Whole Foods from Indiana. How many people can say we stole a company from Indiana? We did it here in the Ninth Ward. And then we built the Pullman Community Center, the largest indoor recreational facility in the state of Illinois. And we're extremely proud of that facility. We had the first food hall right across the street from the police station on the south side of Chicago. We're excited about that. And then just a few months ago, we announced the new Amazon coming to our community that will be opening to a theater near you real soon at the end of October. And then let me just say, because the cat is already out the bag, we built a 400,000 square foot spec building without having a tenant. But we have a new tenant that's going to be a new partner here in the Ninth Ward by the name of S.C. Johnson, one of the largest corporations in the country, coming to our community. And so we topped that off with the artist housing that we just built, 38 new units of artist housing just up the street. So I just wanted to give you all a quick snapshot of the progress that we have made here in this community. We know that we've created jobs. We brought private and public partnerships into the area. That is exactly why the crime is down over 44% here in the 5th District in the 9th Ward. So if we put people to work, then crime goes down. And so we're really excited about that. So that's just a quick snapshot on what we've been doing here in the 9th Ward. But today's grand gem is to break ground on our national monument so we can get this place landscaped and we can get this building open so we can start attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors to our community every single year. And so thank you all so much for all your hard work and dedication. So just a quick housekeeping. My pastor is here supporting us, Pastor Reverend James T. Meeks. Let's give him a round of applause. And we also have my Senator L.G. Sims in the house. State Representative Marcus Evans is also in the house. And my other State Representative Nick Smith. Let's give it a round of applause. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started, but I just wanted to welcome you all to the 9th Ward where great things are happening. And we're gonna turn our podium over to Terry Gage, who's our new superintendent of the National Pullman Monument. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Beal, for that lovely welcome. I want to thank all of you for being here and wearing your face coverings and maintaining this safe distance so that we can be here together in person to celebrate this very important groundbreaking event at Pullman. So the last, actually I wanted to say that this is you couldn't find a more fitting day to have this event at Pullman either. We're here on Labor Day when we remember the Pullman workers who fought, struggled, and made sacrifices during the Great Strike of 1894. So we want to remember them today and how they paved the way for the rest of the labor rights movement here in America. So the last special event that we had here at Pullman was back in February. It was right before the COVID-19 virus reared its ugly head. And I had just been selected as the superintendent of Pullman. I made my first trip down here for the 5th anniversary event. We celebrated the 5th anniversary of President Obama being here to create Pullman National Monument. And while I was here, the National Park Service team gave me a tour of the clock tower building that is standing behind us. And they walked me through, and they had their floor plans, and they were trying to explain to me and help me understand what this building was going to look like when the renovation was complete. And you know, it was going to be this beautiful building with a world-class visitor center and state-of-the-art exhibits. And frankly, it was a little bit hard to envision in there at the time because there were actually trees and shrubs growing inside the building. But I decided that I was going to have to just put my trust in them, and it turns out there was absolutely no reason to worry, because at the same time the National Park Service awarded the construction contract to GMA Construction Group, a Chicago-based group of very high acclaim, and they have done just a marvelous job. I have been with the National Park Service for 34 years, and I should probably knock on wood when I say this, but in my 34 years with the National Park Service, I have never seen a federal construction job that has gone as smoothly as this job has gone. There's been no accidents, no major cost overruns. We're on schedule, so that speaks volumes to Cornelius Griggs and his team at GMA. And so I just want to give a shout out to them. It's been really exciting to be here the last few months and watch their progress here as they breathe new life into this clock tower behind us. And one of the most recent changes that is visible to us all are the changes of the clock faces up at the top of the tower. You can't see them from here, but if you step out, you'll notice that there are nice, bright, shiny faces on the clock now. And it signifies to me and to South Chicago that the times they are a-changin'. And now that IDNR has started their site development work here on site, it's getting very, very real. I can really envision what this place is going to look like and the beautiful park that it's going to be. And I just want to make sure everybody understands the National Park Service, Pullman National Monument, is this clock tower building. But the state of Illinois has and the Pullman State Historic Site, they own all of the land, the 12 acres of land surrounding us, and the beautiful Hotel Florence across the street. And so we're going to be working in close partnership with them to serve the visitors and tell the story of Pullman. And next year together, we will look forward to opening the doors and welcoming visitors into this beautiful building to tell that Pullman story. And the grand opening event will mark the beginning of a new chapter in the Pullman story. And this new chapter would not be possible with all of the supporting players and partners that have helped us to get to this point. And so I want to take just a minute to recognize the people who have been so important to getting us to today. First, the historic Pullman Foundation, who has been around for over 50 years and has fought for the protection and preservation of the Pullman neighborhood. The National A. Philip Randolph Pullman Porter Museum, who tells the story of the Pullman Porters in the context that it should be told. The National Park Foundation, who has raised so much money for this project and made it possible. The National Parks and Conservation Association, who have been such a powerful and advocate and leader for this project. Colleen Callahan and her team at IDNR and the Pullman State Historic Site, they are our sister park and our BFFs going forward. And lastly, but certainly not least, I want to give a shout out to Chicago Neighborhood Initiatives. David Doig and his team over there at CNI, they are the real deal. They are the people who get things done, and that's where the rubber hits the road over there. So we're very thankful to CNI and all our partners. You know, in the past, I've heard it said that Pullman is held up as a model for urban planning and design, but I think in the future, Pullman is going to be held up as a model for public and private partnerships, especially in successfully managing national parks. So here's to the new chapter at Pullman. Thank you. And I want to introduce to you Mr. Cornelius Griggs, the president of GMA Construction Group, who's doing such a great job here. Welcome, Cornelius.
Good morning. I want to thank the National Park Service and all of the individuals and organizations that were a part of selecting my firm, GMA Construction Group, to be the general contractor of choice for the Pullman National Monument. We are extremely excited about this opportunity, and we want to give the National Park Service a round of applause for all the great work that they're doing here in the Pullman community. I'm a lifelong Chicagoan. I grew up on the west side of town in the Austin and Cabrini Green communities. And in 2009, I decided to take the biggest leap of my life and start a construction firm. One of the primary missions of our firm was to develop people that will transform communities. And we're doing this throughout the city of Chicago. You can find us on the west side of town doing 90 units of veteran studio housing over in the North Lawndale community. We've done over 500 units of renovation out at Augill Gardens. And now we're here at the Pullman National Monument, continuing to transform the lives of people throughout communities of Chicago. We're giving back jobs to the community. It's extremely important. Alderman Bill talked about that earlier. How do we stop violence in our communities? We provide jobs for young men and women, and that's what our organization is doing. We've provided nearly 26 jobs throughout the city of Chicago, high-paying, good-paying jobs, $60, $70 an hour jobs to individuals from the community. This project alone has 72% minority and women-owned participation throughout the project. And it's important to note that our firm is also a minority, veteran-owned small business that's doing work right here in the 9th Ward for Alderman Bill. As I think about my roots and where I've come from, growing up in the projects, going to Chicago State University, getting my Bachelor of Science degree, moving on and becoming a veteran in the Army Reserve and serving 2 tours overseas, to come back home and be a part of the transformation of our city is extremely important to me, and it's extremely important to the firm that I've worked to build. In 2009, we were in the office of just 2 of us, Today, we're over 100 strong. We're in 5 states, and we do work all across the country. Charlottesville, Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina, New York City, Dallas, Texas, Abilene, Texas, and Missouri. Our firm is truly grown, but most importantly, our firm is very diverse. 75% of the folks that work for me are African American. 50% of them are low income. It's extremely important that companies who are based here in the city of Chicago give back. And the only way to do that is to be a part of great projects like the Pullman National Monument. So with that, I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank our great mayor, Lori Lightfoot. I want to thank our great alderman, Alderman Beal. I want to thank Senator Dick Durbin and Congresswoman Robin Kelly for all the support that you provided all small businesses throughout the state of Illinois. Continue to do great work, and firms like mine will continue to grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cornelius. I don't know if anyone mentioned, but Cornelius is the first contracting firm to ever get a contract with the National Park Services. So congratulations, that's big stuff. All righty, next, moving right along, we have President from Chicago Federation of Labor. Let's give it up for Bob Ritter.
Thank you, Alderman Beal. I'd also like to, again, acknowledge some of the folks that Alderman Beal acknowledged earlier, our friends from the General Assembly, of course, Senator Durbin, Congresswoman Kelly, and I'd like to thank not only President Barack Obama, who helped make this happen, but also Governor Pritzker and our esteemed Mayor, Lori Lightfoot, who has been very supportive of this project. But seeing how we're in Pullman and it's Labor Day and we're here in the hometown of the American labor movement, I'd like to also acknowledge President of the Illinois Labor History Society, Larry Spivak. And from the 8th Philip Randolph Pullman Porter Museum, Dr. Lynn Hughes and David Peterson. And undoubtedly, this project is going to create a lot of good paying jobs and is going to help with the revitalization of the Pullman neighborhood here in Chicago in the 9th Ward. But I want to talk a little bit about labor history and how we got here today. You see, in 1882, one of the founders of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters, Peter McGuire, advocated for a national Labor Day on the first Monday in September. And here in Chicago, we started advocating for a Labor Day on May 1st. And whether it was May 1st or the first Monday in September, we knew that the working person needed to be acknowledged, needed a day of rest and activism. In 1894, there started to emerge a strike amongst the Pullman Rail Company. You see, Pullman was a big company. Not only did they build the rail cars, but they also staffed the rail cars and worked the railways. And here in George Pullman's company town, things weren't looking so good. And the American Railway Union was headed up by a guy by the name of Eugene V. Debs, a radical figure in not only the labor movement here in the Midwest, but all over the world. But even Eugene Debs, being the radical that he was, needed to be pushed by an 19-year-old woman named Jenny Curtis. As we were advocating, as the workers were advocating to start to take to the streets, Jenny Curtis pushed Eugene V. Debs and the other national leaders of the American Railway Union and said we needed to join this strike and make this a national railway strike. So as a consolation prize for putting the strike down with strike breakers, President Grover Cleveland and Congress finally gave us our National Labor Day. So through struggle, we got Labor Day, but through struggle and perseverance, there was victory. You see, over the years, while we didn't win the strike at Pullman in 1894, out of Pullman emerged a level of activism here in Chicago that eventually won unionization across the board with the Pullman Palace Car Company, and also the creation of the first black trade union, A. Philip Randolph and the Pullman Porters. As radical as Eugene V. Debs is, or was, a figure in history, A. Philip Randolph was also probably one of the most significant leaders in the American labor movement. So here today at Pullman, we not only remember the buildings and the structures, but also the blood in the ground here at the Pullman National Monument, and people like A. Philip Randolph and 19-year-old Jenny Curtis, the people of this community, the people whose activism not only gives us Labor Day, but helps us remember that we must fight for our standard of living every day. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Bob. Another housekeeping note, Bob, all the work that we talked about from one end of the ward to the other was all 100% union built. All right. All right, moving right along is no stranger to the 9th Ward. He is a great friend and partner. He is part of the reason why we are here today. He put legislation in to designate the area as a national monument, but we know in the climate in DC, we still want to continue to push to get that legislation passed, but he was one of the main forces behind asking President Barack Obama to designate this area as a national monument with the stroke of a pen. Let's give it up for Senator Dick Durbin.
Thanks, Alderman. Mayor Lightfoot, thanks for being here today. Colleen Callahan, thanks for being here in the role of the state, J.B. Pritzker, and all of that effort. The legislative team, glad you're with us. Let me tell you, in Washington, Senator Tammy Duckworth and I are committed not only to a monument, but a park, a national park right here. Our motivation, our inspiration, our information comes from Congresswoman Robin Kelly. Thank you, Robin Kelly. And the sons of Pullman porters and the sons of engineers ride their fathers' magic carpets made of steam, and mothers with their babes asleep, rocking to the rail beat, and the rhythm of the rails is all they dream. Every time I hear the word Pullman, I think of that song, City of New Orleans, written by Steve Goodman, Mayor, folk musician and poet, City of Chicago, performed by Arlo Guthrie. And I think back about the railroad days in America. Were it not for the railroads, I doubt that there would be a big old city in Chicago or great state of Illinois. We were smack dab in the middle of this country, and these railroads all came through here, and they made this economy, and they made this state. Every single town, every single village crisscrossed with trains and railroads running in every direction. And a lot of families worked for those railroads, right, Colleen? Understand your grandfather worked for the Illinois Central. Well, my mother and father, my two brothers and I all worked for the New York Central Railroad in East St. Louis, Illinois. That was who we were. Catholics, Democrats, union members, and working for the railroad. And there came a day when I was a little boy, and my father came up to me, and let me tell you this story because I can't forget it ever. And he said, you know, your brother Bob, your older brother, is getting married out in California, and you and I are going to take a train from St. Louis to Los Angeles, just you and me. Me and my dad, and I was 9 or 10 years old, off we went. And I remember on that train when we were sitting there looking out the window, I was so excited, it was like a flight into outer space. This gentleman came along there and he said to my father, Mr. Durbin, excuse me, but I am your Pullman porter, and I just want to let you know that the dining car is going to be open starting at 6 o'clock, and when you get back here at 8 o'clock, we will have made up this train into a sleeping car. I couldn't even imagine it. Here was this gentleman, this African-American gentleman, with the skill to turn what we'd been sitting in into a sleeping car. We ate dinner, came back, and I got up in there and I said to my dad, I said, it's too loud in here. I don't think I'll ever go to sleep. Well, I hit that soft mattress and I heard that clickety-clack and I lasted about 5 minutes. Right, Joe? Riding in a Pullman car, well known for its quality and innovation. Right here, started right here. But if it were just about that car and that production, it would have been lost in history. Bob Ryder has touched the story that brings us together today. It was on May 11th, 1894, that 4,000 workers here who drew wages from Pullman, lived in Pullman's housing, bought their food at Pullman's store, had their wages cut, their jobs slashed. They called a wildcat strike. was one of the first organized strikes in the nation. And it led to a national rail shutdown when all of the other railroad employees joined them in this strike. There was a panic. George Pullman called President Grover Cleveland and said, "You've got to do something." So Grover Cleveland went into the federal court, Mayor, and got an injunction to stop the strike. First time that it ever happened in American history. But still the workers wouldn't go back. So President Grover Cleveland sent in the federal troops. 29 people were killed. 29 people were killed. And eventually, on July 20th, the workers were forced back into the factory to go to work. That was the beginning, as Bob told you, of President Grover Cleveland trying to win back the workers of America by creating this national holiday, national day off called Labor Day. And that's why we're here today at Pullman on Labor Day. When you think about it, with the men and women who were working then, and I saw Bob had his t-shirt on, show them what it says, established 1896, 2 years later, Chicago Federation of Labor. What they basically were saying is, there room on that railroad track in America for economic justice? That was a question they asked then, Bob, and still asked today. But that wasn't the end of the story, and Bob alluded to it, because there was that labor union, the first all African-American labor union in the United States, the Sleeping Car Porters Union. And that union waited for its day, and its day came. In the 1950s, the son of a Pullman porter named Thurgood Marshall took a case to the Supreme Court, Brown versus Board of Education, and ended segregation in America's public schools. And it was just a few years later that a woman in Montgomery, Alabama named Rosa Parks said, "I'm not going to sit on that back seat for the segregated black seats. I'm sitting in the front of the bus." And for that, she was arrested and put in jail. And there was a man named E.D. Nixon. E.D. Nixon stepped up and said, "I'll post the bail for Rosa Parks, and we're going to start the Montgomery bus boycott." E.D. Nixon gathered the preachers, went over and met with Dr. Martin Luther King and said, "We need you to support us. We're going to start this bus boycott." And you know he did. And that was the beginning of the civil rights movement, starting with the sleeping car porters. And their motivation and inspiration led to that question that was raised. A question across America: is that railroad track in the United States big enough for racial justice, economic justice, and racial justice? Those were the questions then. They're the same questions today. We're asking the same questions today. And we have to ask ourselves whether or not the sacrifice that has been made by so many generations before us, which bring us to this place in time, is still worth the effort. We know that it is. And if there's ever a moment in history, and if there's ever a place to do it, it's right here today on Labor Day 2020, that we know that that railroad track is big enough in America for economic justice and rail justice. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Senator. Senator, I was not going to give up the secret on why we're getting all the federal resources here in the Ninth Ward, but you let it out the bag that you and your entire family work for the railroad, so everybody knows now why the money's coming to the Ninth Ward. All righty. Our next speaker is, again, no stranger to us. It's a partner in Washington bringing resources back to us, and we couldn't do it without having partners in Springfield and in Washington, so let's give it up for our Congresswoman Robin Kelly.
Thank you, Alderman Beal, Senator, Mayor, and my colleagues in Springfield, and all the honored guests here. You all know by now the remarkable story of Pullman, a uniquely hardworking, problem-solving, innovative, inspirational, transformational treasure of Americana. As you've heard, more than a century and a quarter ago, Pullman workers refused to waver in the struggle for civil rights. They stood strong in the face of deadly riots and ultimately forced Congress and the President to recognize the monumental contributions that working men and women were making every day. Today, their struggle for basic fairness, their fight for a fair day's wage, for a fair day's work, still continues in America. Pay disparity is still a reality in 2020. Voting rights have come under new attack, and the wealth held by the poorest half of Americans are being depleted by recession after crisis. But like the Pullman brothers and sisters who came before us, We will not fall, we will not falter, and we will not waver. A few decades back, when many felt Pullman had outlived its usefulness, they proposed bulldozing the town. But like the Pullman leaders, local residents united and saved their community. And there are so many fantastic residents in the Pullman community. More recently, an accidental fire nearly destroyed much of the iconic Clock Tower building. Again, the community united to rebuild the tower. Finally, a few years ago, as you've all heard by now, Pullman got the recognition that it long deserved. President Obama proclaimed Pullman to be a national monument, the same status given to the Statue of Liberty. Like Lady Liberty, who welcomes waves and waves of new Americans, Pullman stands as another testament to the same American dream. In Congress, I, along with my partner, Senator Durbin, have legislation to make this location into a national park, an even higher distinction that will also increase access to federal resources. But we're depending on all of you so we can see some changes in January so we can make sure that legislation goes through. Today, as with every Labor Day holiday, we gather to recognize Pullman, the confluence of so many uniquely American stories from presidents to Pullman laborers. Throughout its long and glorious history, there's been a common thread to life in Pullman: unity in the face of all odds. This community's commitment, perseverance, innovation, humanity, and overriding sense of place, dating back 5 to 6 generations, forever shaped America. The story of that unity, that passion, and that progress will forever be told in the new Visitor Center, which opens next year. So congratulations, Pullman, and to all the residents that have made this happen. This is your holiday. Thank you so much.
All righty. Thank you, Congresswoman Robin Kelly. All right, our next speaker is no stranger to anyone here. We want to welcome our mayor to the 9th Ward. And we not only, before I bring her up, I just want to remind the mayor, we got a lot going on out here. And we want to keep it going. We want to keep it going by having a partnership as we move forward with creating jobs and opportunity here in the 9th Ward. Let's give it up for 9th Ward. Round of applause for our mayor, Mayor Lightfoot.
Thank you, Alderman, and thank you all so much for being here. This is a great day. A lot of enthusiasm because of the hard work of so many. You heard the list that the Alderman gave at the start of his remarks. There are incredible, important things that are going on here in the 9th Ward, and I'm happy to be a part of today's celebration. Let me also acknowledge my friends, Senator Dick Durbin, Congresswoman Kelly. You're going to hear, I believe, from Lisa Stark of the Union Pacific Railroad and National Park Foundation, Chicago Federation of Labor leader Bob Reiter, my friend and partner in crime. Thank you, Bob, for, I think, an important lesson in the history of this site. National Pullman Monument Superintendent Terry Gage, welcome to Chicago. The Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Colleen Callahan, we look forward to your continued partnership. GMA Construction President and CEO Cornelius Griggs, wasn't he remarkable? I mean, wasn't he remarkable? I also want to acknowledge our friends in the state legislature who you've heard about already today, but bears repeating: Representative Marcus Evans, Representative Nick Smith, Senator L.G. Sims. I got to give a shout out to my birthday buddy, Reverend Meeks, who heals hearts and minds all over the city, but particularly in this community. Let me also acknowledge the generosity of the Richard Driehaus Foundation, the Chicago Community Trust, and the Alphawood Foundation. We are grateful for these foundations for helping set the vision for the preservation of this historic site. I also have to acknowledge my friend Z. Scott, the president of Chicago State. Great things are happening in Chicago State. David Doig of CNI, and I'd be remiss if I didn't also acknowledge my wife, the First Lady of the city, Amy Eshelman, who's also with us today. Today, we're not just breaking ground on a historic site. We're also laying the foundation for preserving our country's storied history of labor and civil rights activism, where Chicago played a central role. 140 years ago, the Pullman neighborhood became our nation's first industrial plan community, helping put Chicago and Illinois on the map in an industrial age and made us a powerhouse. On its surface, Pullman seemed perfect, with homes and public spaces so scenic that the community was named the ideal city of the world. But for the Pullman Car Company workers that lived there, things were far from perfect. After an economic recession, the company cut their wages and their jobs, but didn't reduce the rent that those workers had to pay on those company homes that they needed to keep food on the table. So as you heard, from May 11th to July 20th, 1894, those same workers staged a historic strike that would reignite the labor and civil rights movements across the country by rallying people against exploitation, discrimination, mistreatment, both in and outside of the workplace. And we know that as a consolation prize, as Senator Durbin said, led to Grover Cleveland announcing that the first Monday in September would become a federal holiday called Labor Day. Given that rich history, we owe it to the Pullman community and our entire country to preserve this history and uplift this neighborhood to its rightful place in our city's cultural and economic life. And when we talk about the struggles of the Pullman workers, of course, we also have to reflect on the life and legacy of A. Philip Randolph, who organized the Pullman Porters into the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. This union earned collective bargaining rights for African-American porters and maids the first time ever in this country's history. And now, over 120 years after the Pullman strike, we're doing just that with the renovation of this Pullman National Historic Site, and we support the efforts of our senators and our congresswomen to make this a national park, not just a national memorial. And we selected Pullman as one of our important Invest Southwest corridors because of the work that was already being done by so many important stakeholders to recognize and drive investment here and rejuvenate the fortunes of this community. Where this site is fully opening will create, when this site is fully open, it'll create no less than 1,500 jobs and attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors from both far and near. That is what the vision is for this site, and we fully support it, and we'll do our part to make that a reality. Rejuvenating the local economy and giving residents the resources they need to escape the cycles of poverty that have left too many of them vulnerable to crises like the one that we're grappling with right now. This renovation comes at a time where we're facing some of the very same challenges as society did 126 years ago. A historic economic crisis, outrageous levels of income and inequality, transition to a new economic age, and attempts by the federal government to stifle legitimate, righteous protests against systems of injustice, and answering to the demands of our working communities, one of which we just renewed the fight for. I want to remind people that in August, we launched the Your Home is Someone's Workplace campaign to support over 56,000 care workers who are a majority women and people of color and are members of our immigrant community. Care workers have been fighting for the same dignity, respect, and safe, sustainable conditions other workers take for granted and that we all deserve. This campaign is personal to me because my mother was also a care worker and never received the kind of benefits and wages that she deserved, taking care of others' households and others' elders and loved ones. This campaign will ensure that these workers have access to a fair living wage, paid time off, clear and written expectation, and safe workplaces. For more information and resources, please look to chi.gov/care. The path forward to ending poverty and creating a more equitable Chicago has always started with listening and addressing the needs of our workers, who are the backbone of our city. Whether it's rail workers of the Pullman community over a century ago or workers across our city today. making sure that we do everything we can to support workers in their aspirations for fair wages, good and safe working conditions is vital to the future of our city. I am proud of the work that we have done already in my administration for workers in partnership with many, including our friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. When I think about Labor Day, first and foremost, I think about my dad, one of the hardest working people I have ever met. Labor Day was one of the few days that he actually didn't work and got to relax and spend time with our family. I also think about other workers that I knew growing up, the steel workers in my town, the men and women who labored in factories without union protections, but who worked hard every day and took pride in their life's work on assembly lines and on factory floors. We remember and salute them today and every day because their hard work and sacrifice is what put food on the table, shelter over our head, and gave me and people like me the opportunities in life that those workers could only dream about for their children. These workers built our cities, they built our towns, and continue to build America. To all of them, past and present, we salute them and we wish them happy Labor Day. You flip my paper. As the Alderman said, there's much work to do, not only here in the 9th Ward, but all over our city, and I look forward to being a part of that work, shoulder to shoulder with working men and women who deserve to have a decent life for them and for their children. We know that doing this work transforms communities, creates a sense of purpose and ownership in the ground under their feet. And that's what we must be about. That's why I'm glad to be here today. Thank you, Alderman. Thank you all who are here and have made this moment possible. More work to be done, but onward together in the struggle for making sure that our city lives up to the promise and the obligation to be good to our people, to build lives worth living, and to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to live their lives in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I didn't hear, Mayor, is that we're going to rename Invest Southwest to Invest South Side, far South Side. Thank you so much for those remarks, Mayor. We appreciate you being here today, joining us in this historic moment. Thank you. All right, our next person is the Assistant VP of Public Affairs for Union Pacific Railroad. Let's give it up for Lisa Starks.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of Union Pacific Railroad and as a National Park Foundation donor. When you think about railroad in our history, Union Pacific's history with the national parks started with preserving the iconic western parks, the great parks of our nation, including Zion, Yellowstone, Grand Canyon, and Death Valley. And what you may not realize is that the railroad, way back when those parks opened up to the public, provided access to those pristine landscapes that were otherwise virtually impossible to visit. Our rail network allowed travelers to experience the wonderment of the new national parks, working hand in hand with the Park Service to develop the infrastructure that park visitors still treasure. In fact, Union Pacific helped build many of the iconic lodges that you may see today when you visit a national park. Today, Union Pacific remains enthusiastic about sharing the wonders of our nation with the next generation of park goers through our partnership with the National Park Foundation. We're extremely proud to support the Pullman National Monument. We think this is an absolute fitting tribute to George Pullman and all that he contributed to not only railroad history, but to planned development, as well as the labor movement. For 150 years, Mr. Pullman's accomplishments have touched the lives of so many employees, not only at Union Pacific Railroad, but throughout the railroad industry. Mr. Pullman is a part of our history at Union Pacific Railroad, and it's something that we're extremely proud of and we recognize today. We're very honored to partner with the City of Chicago. Mayor, thank you for being here today, with the state of Illinois, with all of the federal partners, and leaders who have had a hand in bringing Pullman to life, and of course, the state and community leaders that have made this a priority. I congratulate and thank each and every one of you that are here today for what has been accomplished so far, and I look forward to our partnership in the future. In closing, I want to just remind everybody that, really throughout history, the railroads have played a really significant role in community development. Where the railroads ran, communities grew and spurred around them and provided opportunity for economic development. And that's something that we are still absolutely supportive today. So as I close, I would be remiss if I didn't mention briefly the National Parks Find Your Park initiative. And so with that, I encourage everybody to find your park, or put another way, encuentra tu parque. And I suggest, why not start right here in Chicago's own backyard with a visit to Pullman. Thank you.
All right. Our next guest here in the Ninth Ward is no stranger. She has been with us every step of the way. And as much as I would love to give our state reps and state senators and even our governor credit for the appropriation of $21 million coming to our community, we all get credit for different things, but we know there's people behind the scenes making things happen. And let me just say, we have a true soldier and a partner here in the Ninth Ward with us today who works for the governor. Let's give it up for the Director of Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Colleen Callahan.
Thank you, Alderman. I have some prepared remarks, as most of us did, but the thought occurred to me as I was listening to everyone speak today, acknowledging the partnerships, whether it's local or state or federal or community, that every one of us that is here today, whether we're sitting in these chairs or those chairs, we're all here because we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. No matter what our role is in the Pullman project, everyone that is here today feels a stake in this. And that's why it's important for all of us to take the time out to be here today. There are a lot of other places that many of us could have been, but we made this our priority for a reason, because it means so much to every one of us for different reasons. Senator Durbin talked about his personal relationship and what he remembers about traveling from Southern Illinois to Los Angeles. The mayor talked about what it means to her as she reflects on her family. And so that's why it's important. It's part of our history. And so as we think about the 126 years later, when the Pullman workers walked off the job, they did so in my words, not theirs, because they knew it wasn't fair. It didn't feel right. And so it's important that when we acknowledge that life isn't fair, that it doesn't exempt us from trying to make it that way. And that's what they were doing. And here we are today. As speakers have said, we're not there yet. We're not where we need to be yet, but we're closer. And we'll get closer because of all of the partnerships that are represented here today to reflect this history and to showcase it. And so to not repeat what so many have said, I will also share a quick reference to why this is important to the state of Illinois and to me personally as the director of the Department of Natural Resources. I too feel that this is the right place for me to be today. And I wouldn't have thought that several years ago, but this is my second consecutive Labor Day at Pullman. And I think I want to be here next year and the year after that, because it feels like that's where I should be. The reason being that my grandpa Callahan was the president of the Illinois Farmers Union. Now, when you think of unions, you probably don't think of farmers, but I grew up on a farm and my grandpa was the president of the Farmers Union, and he felt that there was a need for that. And my other grandpa, my grandpa Thompson, fixed hot boxes on the Illinois Central Railroad in Springfield. And I remember him coming home dirty and greasy, and it was hard work. But he literally kept the trains running on time. That was his job. And as I was thinking about what to say today to represent the state, I found this because I keep it right next to some of the work that I do from home now. And it was this fan that says, look for this label when you shop for women's and children's apparel, the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, the symbol of decency, fair labor standards, and the American way of life. Let your conscience be your guide. Those words ring true today. And why it's important for me to be here today is because I know now that I didn't know then what my Grandpa Thompson did. He knew that when those Pullman workers went on strike, they were doing it for the future of what his industry was doing. And I know that now, but I didn't know it then, because he would always point out to me on those bib overalls that he wore that union label. And he would say, it's important to wear union clothes, because he was a union man. And it all started right here. And so to represent the state of Illinois and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, it seems appropriate that we continue to do the work that those started for us to complete. You know? So when we think about the partnerships, and we think about state, federal, and local, community certainly, it is those partnerships that have brought us to this point where we are ready now finally for this groundbreaking ceremony. From the Hotel Florence, which is across the street, and to the entire 12 acres, this is the beginning of the state of Illinois being able to showcase not only the significance for what we do as it relates to labor and civil rights and what it meant to the history of our nation, but the role the state of Illinois played in that significant event and what it means to us today. So for John Rogner, who is our assistant director who is here, Ryan Pren, who is our director of parks and our historic sites, to Levi, who's the site superintendent, and to Martin, who's over at the Florence Hotel as the site specialist. This is an important and significant day for the state of Illinois and for all of us as we commemorate Labor Day. That's why we're here. It started here. And I would thank all of you for taking time to be here and say that we look forward to all convening again after this groundbreaking to see you here soon for the ribbon cutting. Thank you again.
All right, thank you so much. And once again, Ms. Callahan, every time you come to the Ninth Ward, you bring lots of money. So stay close to those guys over there and keep the money flowing. So thank you so much. All right, we're going to deviate just a bit. We're going to ask everyone to step back so we can break ground, and then after that, we'll come back for Q&A. for Q&A, please. Thank you. All right, once again, everyone can have a seat back for Q&A. All right, any questions from the press? Well, let me just say, working with my master developer, C&I, we have a master plan that really just complements this particular property with bringing hotel chains, more restaurants to the area that we're working on aggressively every single day. When you have people coming to your community for visiting the national monuments, they need some place to eat, they need some place to sleep, and so we want to capture those tourism dollars here in the South Side by creating that environment, and we've already started doing that. So having this in place and working on the other plans that we have will complement this. We are capture that tourism money in order to have that money circulating here within the community.
You're hoping to open it in about a year. What could interfere with that plan?
Absolutely nothing is going to interfere with the plan. We're moving full steam ahead. We're excited about the progress we've made. I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule. The landscaping has already started, and so what you will see here next year when we come back, everyone will come back for the grand opening, you will actually see something that's breathtaking, as you can see from these renderings.
What do you worry about?
Well, the economy. The economy is really the only thing I see that could potentially slow things down. But right now, we have the funding in place, we have the team in place, and so I don't really see anything that can stop us moving forward at this particular point.
Alderman, I have a question for Mr. Durbin or any other person who'd like to address it on a related topic. This is a national holiday. Would you care to address the reports that our national leader has made derogatory comments about our veterans?
I hope he didn't say those things, but I wouldn't be surprised. I served for years with John McCain, who was shot down as a U.S. Navy pilot over Vietnam and spent more than 5 years of his life as a prisoner of war. And this president said that none of his heroes got captured. I've heard him say things about Gold Star families, and also the fact that he refuses to even raise the issue with Vladimir Putin as to whether there was a bounty on the lives of American soldiers. This is not the first instance where this president has disappointed us when it comes to recognizing the amazing contributions of the men and women in uniform.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all so much. Enjoy your Labor Day. We really appreciate you all for being here. Thank you so much.